There he is. That's Scott Walker, Wisconsin governor. He just made it a formal announcement to his bid for the White House. An arousing speech that covered a lot of areas, beginning, of course, with the story of local veterans. And it really was one of those heartland speeches and how perhaps he can take his values and his ideas and spread them throughout the United States. A lot of them we've heard before, less big government, more reliance, the ability for people to pull themselves up by the bootstrap. We have our same panel here, and I want to go to you first, Senator Brown. Your thoughts on Walker's announcement. What stood out to you?
Well, first of all, the five key themes are reform, growth, safety, opportunity, and family. I think are five powerful themes that really resonate throughout not only middle America, but every American. You have an opportunity. I thought it was uplifting. He was very positive. And even though he was drawing contrast with Washington, no offense, everybody knows that Washington is in a bubble. And what they do really, while it affects everybody in the United States, it's usually so far out of touch with reality that I think that's a powerful theme as well. I don't think he was taking any jabs at the Washington players, obviously with Rand and Marco and the like. I also think being a governor gives him a distinct advantage over the people who are running in, who don't have that government leadership experience. So it's going to be interesting. I think this will give him a bump in the polls.
Right. To your point, he laid out his resume very early in the announcement. Taxes, cut taxes, $2 billion, individuals, employees, property. He talked about a pro-life agenda, getting rid of Planned Parenthood. The photo ID probably got the largest applause until later on. He talked about repealing Obamacare. This is a resume that obviously he's gotten. He's run a state. He's not going to be, it won't be on-the-job training. But is this resume good enough to convince the American people he should be in charge of the entire nation? Scott?
Well, yeah, we had a president for the last almost 8 years who didn't have a resume. I mean, he was a community organizer. He was a short-term senator, and he's been the president of the United States. And that lack of leadership, that lack of experience has, quite frankly, made it so our allies don't trust us, our foes don't fear or respect us. I do not want another Obama, Clinton agenda moving forward for another 4 to 8 years, because I'm tired of the divisiveness, Charles. I'm tired of the us versus them, the haves and the have-nots. I want somebody who's going to, number one, be a proven leader, two, a proven winner, and somebody who's going to move forward and tell us what they're going to do and how they're going to do it and how they're going to lift everybody up in this country. I think it's so critically important right now in this moment in time in our country's history.
You know, Richard, I was just saying that it seemed to me the loudest applause came when he talked about repealing Obamacare. Let's take a listen to that moment again, because I want to ask you if that should be a top priority.
Many of you here know when I first became governor, I literally allowed the state to join the federal lawsuit against Obamacare on my very first day. We need a president who on the first day will call on the Congress to once and for all repeal Obamacare entirely.
All right, Richard, we know Obamacare has been completely unpopular, and even there's certain parts of it, like the Cadillac tax and other things, that don't even kick in yet. When they kick in, there's no doubt this would be extremely unpopular. Is that enough probably to get it repealed?
No, I don't think so. Look, this speech was an amazing campaign speech. This was probably the best that we've ever seen Scott Walker. It's not a governing speech, and I think he's drawing the distinction that there is a process in place where he has to win the nomination first. He is going for the jugular. What we just saw is a whole litany of really red meat for conservatives. I mean, he was even talking about concealed carry. This is a guy who understands that you've got to win first to get the nomination. My worry is that in campaigning and going to do everything you can to win the nomination, that you may go too far and you may not be able to adjust.
But Richard, did you hear that?
Election.
I didn't hear him go too far in anything that he just mentioned. It seemed to me that everything he talked about should or would resonate with every American.
What I would say is that he gave a lot of red meat to Republicans, that all Republicans are going to love this speech. But there's a lot in there about photo ID, concealed carry, pro-life issues. While it pleases the Republicans, I think it's a risky strategy to put all of those in one basket and try then to get the general election.
Tammy, what do you think?
I think this was actually very Reagan-esque. I think because it's somewhat rare after all of the liberals we've had, that it seems like it might be appealing to the base, but now people have to appeal to independents. These are issues that matter to Americans. He had energy. It's going to appeal, I think, across the board. This is why he's 8 points ahead in Iowa, because of the Iowa freedom speech. This is his chance. People saw him. They're going to get to know him, and I think they're going to like what they saw.
I think people also like Jim Awad. Kohl's Cash. We should point out that Kohl's closed near the all-time high today. Okay,
yeah.
So he's not the only one shopping there. Americans are trying to get a discount. Why? Their income has dropped over the last 6 years. I mean, take a look at this. By the way, I don't know if that ask is right. If so, he just bumped his stock up. But the bottom line is, I think this appeals to all Americans who are tightening their belts.
I think it'll appeal to the middle America, the heartland, very well. I'm not sure it's going to play in the major urban areas, but he's got an opportunity to change the mindset. It was a great speech.
The Keystone Pipeline, again, economically, it just makes sense. This is putting economics ahead of special interests.
Absolutely. I think economically, a lot of the country can support what he did. Some of the social issues, we'll have to see how we get through them.
All right, Senator Brown, I got to come back to you. It's been brought up here a couple of times, the social issues. Maybe he didn't have to go there, or he did in order to win this. We hear this a lot, that you've got to campaign a certain way to win primaries and then campaign a different way to win a general election. Do you think that's true?
Well, first of all, I think he's going to be who he's going to be. Scott Walker is Scott Walker. When you sit down, you talk to him, you look him in the eye, and you ask him questions, as not only I and my family have done, but others in New Hampshire and the rest of the country. They say, boy, I really like him. I like the fact that he's plain talking. I like the fact he's not a Washington insider. I like the fact that he's telling me what he's going to do, how he's going to do it, and how hopeful he is for our country to restore it to its greatness that it once was. The social issues, do they play? Yeah, they play in certain parts of the country. But don't forget, I'm going to quote Governor Sununu, Iowa picks corn, New Hampshire picks candidates. New Hampshire is the first in the nation primary state. He's showing very well here. He's going to continue to do well the more that time he spends in New Hampshire. And I think in this state in particular, 1 through 7 is going to be within 150 to 200 votes per person between 1 and 7th. So here we go.
We're talking about a real tight horse race then here, no matter who wins it. Before we go then, ultimately to fight to win, that seems like a message that goes across the board. Obviously, it talks about the way we fought wars, but also the way we should govern ourselves. You think that's a winning message? Real quick, Senator Brown.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a winning message. And this thing isn't going to be done until California, Charles, because don't forget, Ted Cruz and others have a lot of money, and they're going to use it.
All right. Hey, by the way, we did hear earlier today that Scott Brown's doing pretty well himself. We'll get some numbers probably officially. A lot of money pouring into the race. A lot of candidates are pouring into the race.